Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopijana Bhava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Kopijana Bhava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Rajadanarandana Jaya Brajadanarandana Yasodanandana Rajadanarandana Jaya Brajadanarandana Yamunatiravachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatiravachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopijana Bhava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Kopijana Bhava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Radha-dana-ranjana Jaya Radha-dana-ranjana Yasodanandana Radha-dana-ranjana Jaya Radha-dana-ranjana Yamuna Tiravachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Paramhangsa Parivadakacharya Asadhara Siddhushi Shriman His Avangre Shalesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zarani Bhakta Slava Shri Gurui Shri Gurangi Om Vishnu Braya Krishna Prasthapute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskyadyade Siddharne Om Agyana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vasakans Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashubhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 4, Gajendra returns to the spiritual world. I'll read the summary of here. Do you have any idea where they get the chapter headings from?
Some editions have them at the end, so translation, but they will differ from edition to edition.
So someone made some up. Someone just makes them up. But there is chapters 1, 2, because when Shukadeva Goswami was speaking in Maitreya, they're not, now we go into chapter 4, so it's hard to say. This 4th chapter describes the previous birth of Gajendra and the crocodile. It tells how the crocodile became a Gandharva, and how Gajendra became an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was a king on the Gandharva planet whose name was Hu. Who was that? Hu. Hu. Once this king Hu, whoever it was enjoying with women in the water, and while enjoying he pulled the leg of Devala Rishi, who was also taking a bath in the water. Upon this, the sages became very angry and immediately cursed him to become a crocodile. King Hu was very sorry when cursed in that way, and he begged pardon from the sage, who, in compassion, gave him the benediction that he would be freed when Gajendra was delivered by the personality of Godhead. Thus the crocodile was delivered when killed by Narayana. When Gajendra, by the mercy of the Lord, became one of the Lord's associates in Vaikuntha, he got 4 hands. This achievement is called Swarupya Mukti, or the liberation of receiving a spiritual body exactly like that of Narayan. Gajendra, in his previous birth, had been a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. His name was Indradumya, and he was the king of the Tamila country. Is there such a place called Tamila country? But yeah, I know that. But it's Tamilia. That was a long time ago. So yeah. Following the Vedic principles, this king retired from family life and constructed a small cottage in the Malayachala Hills. Is the Malayachala Hills still around? We don't have too many geologists here right now. Where he always worshipped the personality of God, Supreme Personality of Godhead, in silence. Agastya Rishi, along with many disciples, once approached King Indradumya's ashram. But because the king was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not receive Agastya Rishi properly. He said the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that actually he was just pretending to be in meditation. What's that? Yeah. Thus the Rishi became very angry and cursed the king to become a dull elephant. In accordance with his curse, the king was born as an elephant, and he forgot all about his previous activities in devotional service. Nonetheless, in his birth as an elephant, when he was dangerously attacked by the crocodile, he remembered his past life in devotional service and remembered the prayer he had learned in that life. Because of this prayer, he again received the mercy of the Lord. Thus he was immediately delivered, and he became one of the Lord's 4-handed associates. Shukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing the good fortune of the elephant. Shukadeva Goswami says that by hearing the narration of Gajendra's deliverance, one can also get the opportunity to be delivered. Shukadeva Goswami vividly describes this, and thus the chapter ends. Text 1. Shri Shukuvacha Tada Devarshi Gandharva Prameshana Parogama Mamuchu Kusamasaram Sham Santak Karma Taddhare Shri Shukuvacha Tadadevarshi Gandharva Rameshana Parogama Mamuchu Kusumasaram Sham Santak Karma Taddhare Shri Shukuvacha Tadadevarshi Gandharva Parameshana Parogama Mabhukshu Kusamasaram Samshanta Karma Taddhare Shri Shukuvacha Tadadevarshi Gandharva Prameshana Parogama Mamuchu Kusamasaram Samsanta Karma Taddhare Shri Shukuvacha Tadadevarshi Gandharva Rameshana Parogama Mamuchu Kusamasaram Shamsanta Karma Taddhare. Mataji. Shri Shukuvacha Tadadevarshi Gandharva Rameshana Parogama Mumukshu Kusamasaram Samshanta Karma Taddhare. Shri Shukuvacha Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Tada, at that time, when Gajendra was delivered, Deva Rishi Gandharva, the demigods, sages, and Gandharvas, Brahma Ishana Parogama, headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Mumukshu showered Kusama Asana Asaram, a covering of flowers, Samsantaha, while praising karma, transcendental activity, Tat, that, Gajendra Mokshana, Hare, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, when the Lord delivered Gajendra, king of the elephants, all the demigods, sages, and Gandharvas, headed by Brahma and Shiva, praised this activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and showered flowers upon both the Lord and Gajendra. Purport. It is evident from this chapter that the great sages like Devala Rishi, Narada Muni, and Agastya Muni will sometimes curse. The curse of such a personality, however, is in fact a benediction. Both the crocodile, who had been a Gandharva in his previous life, and Gajendra, who had been a king named Indradumya, were cursed, but both of them benefited. Indradumya, in his birth as an elephant, attained salvation and became a personal associate of the Lord in Vaikuntha, and the crocodile regained his status as a Gandharva. We find evidence in many places that the curse of a great saint or devotee is not a curse but a benediction. Shri Shugovacha Tada Devarshi Gandharva Rameshana Parogama Mamuchu Kusamasaram Samshantak Karmatadare. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, when the Lord delivered Gajendra, king of the elephants, all the demigods, sages and Gandharvas headed by Brahma and Shiva praised this activity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and showered flowers upon both the Lord and Gajendra. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Siddharne. Doesn't mention what Hu had done in order to be cursed. Do you know what he did? No, that's Gajendra. That's right. He pulled the leg of Devala Rishi. And Gajendra got into Agastya Muni. So, in any case, he was a Gandharva, and I think Gandharvas are pretty much down the food chain, they say. Do you know what food chain means? Gandharvas are not very high up the ladder of consciousness. Their happiness is around 100 times more than the highest happiness you can get on earth, which is they're just a little bit above the human beings. And above them are the others, I guess the angels, and then above them are the demigods. Well, there's others in between the demigods. Then we have the those who are doing sacrifice, Amaraloka, and above them we have Siddhaloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, and above that is Brahmaloka, and above that is the coverings of the universe, and above that is liberation, and above that is Shiva Loka, and above that is Vaikuntha, and then we get to Krishna Loka. In any case, the main point in the purport is curses by great personalities are actually benedictions. People have one idea what a benediction and a curse is. People think that if you get material benefit, that's a benediction. As we heard many times, one emperor, Akbar, I believe, was asking his minister, why is this sage cursing different people or blessing them? He blessed one brahmachari that may you die immediately. He blessed one butcher, may you not live and may you not die. He blessed one prince, may you live forever. And he blessed one devotee, whether you die or live, it makes no difference. So the king was curious, the emperor was curious, why is this saintly person giving these different benedictions? So he said that he gave the benediction to the prince that may you live forever, because the prince is enjoying his senses so much that certainly when he leaves his body, he's going to have to go to hell. And he blessed the brahmachari, may you die immediately. Because the brahmachari is doing so many austerities, certainly when he leaves his body, he'll go to a higher place. So better he die immediately and go to that higher place and not having to go through the strenuous austerities that he's doing now. And for the butcher, may you not live and may you not die, because the butcher's life is in hell already, killing animals, hearing their screams, covered with blood, and after he dies, he's certainly going to hell and have to suffer torments for a long, long time. So better off he not live in such a hellish situation, and better he not die, because he'll certainly go to hell and suffer even more. And for the devotee, it doesn't matter if you live or die, because when your actual devotee is living, Narayana, Para Sarve, Kutashrana Vibyati, swaga apavarga narakeshu pituyartha darshanaha. As Lord Shiva told his wife Parvati, that persons like Chitraketu, who are great devotees, or Narayana Purana, who have taken shelter of Lord Narayan, Sarve, in all circumstances, kutasina bibhyate, swaga apavarga, whether they're in heaven or in liberation or in Narakeshu, in hell, tuya apituyata darshana. Everything is seen in Krishna consciousness. So they don't live in this world, they don't live wherever, they only live in Vaikuntha. So they're living in Vaikuntha, and when they leave, they'll certainly go to Vaikuntha also. Therefore, we find here is mentioned some curses. Narada cursed the famously cursed Nalakuvara and Manigriva to take birth as trees in Vrindavan and get Krishna's darshan. And they were conscious because generally trees don't watch Krishna's pastimes. But Nalakuvara and Manigriva got the opportunity when Krishna was present to see his performing his pastimes in Vrindavan. Which, if you have to get the choice between seeing Krishna's pastimes and not seeing Krishna's pastimes, then probably we take the choice, let us see Krishna's pastimes, although we may be in the body of a tree. And ultimately Krishna delivered them. And they went back to wherever they came from, I guess they live with Kuvera, and he generally lives with, he has a place in Mount Meru with the Yakshas. But anyhow, Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigods, so he has enough money to support wherever he's living. And that's where they went back, but of course they went back in full Krishna consciousness. On the other hand, we wonder what kind of benediction really did who get. He just went back to become a Gandharva again, which is not really that great of achievement. But I guess it's better than being a crocodile. Similarly, we find Parvati cursing Chitraketu is the example. And Chitraketu got to go back to the spiritual world quicker than he would have. Otherwise, he had a long duration of life, and he wouldn't be able to go back to the spiritual world until some time later. So generally people think the worst thing is death, and when they hear someone was cursed, they become very upset. Just like Shivananda Sain, he was taking care of the pilgrimage from Navadvip, or Mayapur, to Jagannath Puri every year, which is, for us nowadays, is not that long a journey. Whether if you go by plane or train, but if you have to walk, it takes some time. It must be like 1,500 kilometers or something. Less than 1,000. Jagannath Puri. Isn't Jagannath Puri further from Delhi than? Because it takes 2 hours by plane. Yeah. So 2,000, 2 hours, if they travel around 500 miles in an hour, an airplane. Yeah, I know, but it takes 2 hours from Delhi. And where was Shiva? They were in. Oh, I see. That's right. So, in any case, they were actually in Jagannath Puri, and they were going to. I'm getting all confused here. Anyhow, they went on pilgrimage to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, and they were coming from. by foot, 600 kilometers. Anyhow, travel 600 kilometers, you do 60 kilometers a day. That's a lot, I guess, 60 kilometers a day. What's that? Well, say it took 10 days. Anyhow, he used to organize the pilgrimage every year, so all the residents of Navadvip would go to Jagannath Puri. And he had organized their accommodations and their food and pay all the tax collectors. And one time, Shivananda saying it was late, making the arrangements for the pilgrims. And when he came back, Lord Nityananda was so disturbed, he went up to Shivananda Sen and kicked him in the chest. And cursed that because I'm so hungry, let all your sons die. And then Shivananda Sen's wife started to cry. And Shivananda Sen's reaction was, for the inconvenience that we've caused Lord Nityananda, let them all die. Of course, Lord Nityananda embraced Shivananda Sen. But for an ordinary person would see this as, he's supposed to be God. What kind of God do you have? Just because God gets a little hungry, he curses everyone to die. Well, God becomes hungry and he curses people when he can't eat. What is this? But therefore, these things are inconceivable pastimes. Because Shikanta didn't understand it either, although he was a devotee of Lord Chaitanya, but he was a small boy, and therefore he left the party and went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu alone, because he was disturbed by Lord Nityananda kicking his father in the chest. Of course, Lord Nityananda, if we could even see his lotus feet, that would be quite an achievement. What to speak if we felt them on our chest. So Shivananda Sena understood everything properly. So it's the same way for, sometimes we find that so many curses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's inconceivable how many curses there are. Especially Vasishtha Muni is very expert at cursing people. He's living for billions of years apparently, and during that time, especially they mention all the curses he gives. At the same time, he's so tolerant that when Vishwamrita Muni killed his 100 sons, he tolerated it. But oftentimes we find that he's quite apparently not tolerant in cursing kings and others. And what to speak of Narada Muni cursing when the Samba took, and the other members of the Yadu dynasty dressed up Samba as a pregnant woman and took him before the sages and asked the sages, what kind of child will this girl give birth to? And the sages, knowing that actually he was just dressed up as a woman, he was actually Samba, so they cursed him that he'll give birth to a iron club that will be the cause of destruction of your Yadu dynasty. I mean, it was just a joke. Come on. In any case, the destruction of the Yadu dynasty apparently took place, but this was for the benefit of, it served many purposes. Because many of them were demigods and it was time for them to go back. Krishna was going to leave, to go to the next universe. Many things had to be accomplished. Krishna's associates had to go back to the spiritual world, etc. So, without being cursed by the sages, apparently this pastime would not be able to go on. Also, there's so many commentators that after Krishna was about to leave, and if the Yadu dynasty, which was so powerful, if they became disturbed at Krishna's disappearance, they may create havoc in the world, and etc., etc. So, Krishna's daksha, he achieves many things at once, but ultimately everyone gets benefited. So, what's that? So everyone gets benefit. So we can assume from our perspective that we actually know what's taking place. Just like when we find out that Putana comes into the Vrindavan, how does a witch come into Vrindavan, even if she assumes the form of a beautiful woman? How does a witch get to enter into Krishna's pastimes? So there must be something more. Even all these demons coming, apparently to Vrindavan. There's more to the story, but sometimes Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't go into all the details because they don't feel it's necessary. How Putana formerly was the daughter of Bali Maharaj, or maybe his sister, and how she had seen Bali Maharaj, as she'd see Vamanadev and fell in love with him and wanted to become his mother, and how that was fulfilled by her becoming Putana. She was able to nurse Krishna, but when Vamanadev took away all of Bali Maharaj's possessions, she became angry and wanted to kill Vamanadev. And so she got the opportunity to try by becoming a witch. Therefore, we can usually understand the chain of reactions, actions and reactions that go into making Krishna's pastimes, and how people are eligible. For instance, sometimes we find that people get immediate benedictions. Like this drunken king on the other side of where the Muslims were ruling when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going. I guess he was going to South India, or maybe he was going, I can't remember where he was going. But he had to cross over to the other side of the river, but it was difficult because of the Muslims. But one Muslim governor sent his spy to find out what was going on, why this mendicant is attracting so many people, they're following him, who is he, what is he doing? And so he sent his spy, and the spy came back and said, well, what's going on? And then the spy started to chant Hare Krishna. And the king was all confused, and the spy started to roll on the ground. He became interested. Well, my spy seems pretty ecstatic. I'd like to find out what's going on myself. So he sends a letter to the one who's in charge of that area for the Hindus, saying, I'd like to meet with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm going to come unarmed with just some assistance. Can I get a chance to get his darshan? So they said, all right, no problem. So the Muslim government comes, sees Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, develops ecstasy, falls on the ground. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him all his mercy, becomes a pure devotee of Krishna. A drunken Muslim governor, suddenly becomes a pure devotee. Or Moga, blaspheming Lord Chaitanya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touching his heart and becomes a pure devotee in ecstasy. Gives all the sattvika bhavas. So we think, well, that's unfair. I've been chanting my rounds, at least trying. I don't get hardly any mercy. Maybe I should become a drunken Muslim man. Or just curse Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why are you eating so much, No, actually we don't understand how these persons are qualified to achieve the mercy that they're receiving. Nothing goes on accidentally. Everything is done on the basis of people's actually merit. There may be such a thing as causeless mercy, but generally Krishna is equal to everyone. So when we find people cursed, we can understand, at least in the Bhagavatam, we can understand, generally speaking, there's a reason why they're mentioned as being cursed and what benedictions they get. It's not just to, make us fearful. You see a sage, you run the other way. My God, he might curse me. But it's to actually understand what's actually good and what's bad. To be deprived of material assets is not sometimes so bad, or to be put into a position where you become eligible to actually have Krishna's darshan. No matter what happens, it's not bad if you ultimately get Krishna's darshan, even if you have to wait for some time to get it. Because Krishna's darshan, only very exalted persons get the opportunity. Although we find Gajendra had to suffer as an elephant, but apparently he wasn't suffering. He was actually seemed to have a good time. He was the head elephant. He had some of the most beautiful elephants in the universe as his girlfriends. All the other elephants, all the other animals in the forest gave him respect. The water he drank was pure. He didn't have to drink bottled water or anything. The food he ate was first class. So it wasn't such a bad thing. We may think, well, that's horrible to become an elephant. Or we may not think it's horrible, I don't know. We may think, I wouldn't mind being an elephant. But for an elephant, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, when an elephant eats or sleeps or mates or defends, then he gets as much more enjoyment in the heavenly planets than an ordinary human being gets on this planet. The only thing, human beings have the opportunity to become Krishna conscious, or if they don't, simply be proudful of how they're being proud of how they're eating, sleeping, mating, defending, but actually none different from the animals who are actually enjoying more than they are. Anyhow, I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes.
It seems that there are quite a few instances of some sadhu giving a curse which turns out to be a blessing in disguise. Are there some examples of blessings that are actually curses in disguise?
Well, anyone who goes to a sage and gets blessings from material prosperity, generally it turns out to be the source of problems. Just like when they've done statistical evaluations of people who won the lottery, which means they had some karma at getting money easily. But usually they became super rich and it became the source of all their anxiety and problems. They've lost it within 4 or 5 years, they lost all their money. So we may think something is a blessing, but actually it may be a curse. Just like in astrology, people are always anxious to find out how they're going to get the blessings of their punya, and they're always anxious to find out if they're actually going to get any decrease in their material sense gratification. But generally speaking, decrease in material sense gratification, which deals with the houses that deal with liberation, like the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th, which take away material assets, generally speaking, are actually benedictions because they're the houses of liberation. And the houses of artha houses, which gives material benediction, like 2nd and 7th and 11th, can entangle one in material existence and give one material benefit, but all those houses are generally considered problematic in the long run. Because the more sense gratification one gets, the more one becomes degraded and finds himself into real trouble. Yes?
Seeing so many examples of sadhus giving curses, do you have any guidelines about cursing or not cursing also? Can we curse?
Well, I don't think we're in a position to, unless you think you're a great sage, I wouldn't go around cursing people. Generally, if you curse the wrong person, and he actually doesn't deserve the curse, he'll probably boomerang and go back on you. So it's not advisable to go around cursing people, especially devotees. Yes.
So I think yesterday you spoke about fate, and I was thinking there are so many. Prabhupada, for example, he says that if someone reads a page of his books, then he gets benefit. So
if someone
reads a page of his books,
who's that says that?
Prabhupada. I think
I'm sure everyone gets benefit if you do any devotional activity.
And how do we? I believe it, but sometimes I don't think I act like I believe it. So how to act?
Well, we have to act in such a way as we actually read Prabhupada's books, hear something. We can look at it. You know, if a dog can also read the book, look, he won't get very much benefit from it, though. If we don't feel we don't perceivably feel the benefit, it means we have to learn how to read the books, just like we have to learn how to chant Hare Krishna. One chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, if we actually do it correctly, with full concentration and devotion, can free ourselves from more sinful activities than we can commit in all our lifetimes. Could at once liberate one to the spiritual world. So we may think we're chanting Hare Krishna, but it's more than just the movement of the tongue and the lips. It has to do with our consciousness too. Without having the proper consciousness, it's not possible to put the lips and everything else in the right way, make the right sound. As Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, we work first with our mind and intelligence in this world. So we may think we're reading, but the question is, where's our mind and where's our intelligence? How much intelligence do we have to actually concentrate our mind? Anything else?
Prabhu. So question, why Agastya cursed the king was worshipping Krishna, so the worship of the sage was included, and the king was off in trance, no fault. If he had not been in meditation, he would have given proper reception. I think it has to do... Okay.
Is that a question?
Yes. So
what's the question?
That why Agastya cursed the king?
Well, according to what Adi Prushabhuru said, that in the commentaries by Vishwanath, someone's commentaries at least, it says that the king was actually not in meditation. He was just pretending to be in meditation. And Agastya Muni understood that, so he cursed him. Yeah, and he put them into the body of an elephant where he could learn his lesson. But obviously Agastya Muni understood that. And in the end, he'd see Krishna. Vishnu would come and save him. He knew that already. So when he cursed him, he also understood the value of the curse. Anything else?
Same topic. Shlokas 11-12 of this same chapter says that...
we can't go when you get into 11 and 12. We don't want to spoil the story. Anything else? No. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.